Welcome, one and all. It is Monday, Football Monday, here on the SB Nation NFL Show. A reminder before we keep going that this show is brought to you by our friends at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. As noted, this is Monday, Football Monday on the SB Nation NFL Show, where you can listen to all things NFL. Make sure to search for the SB Nation NFL Show wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe. Leave a rating, write a review. Those things make our hearts soar. You can also watch our shows on the SB Nation NFL YouTube channel. So go subscribe over there. And you want to do that because while the preseason is over, football season for the 14th time is finally about to be back. My name is RJ Ochoa. The fantastic Rachel Prevet is on the ones and twos with me, as always, JP Acosta and Mark Schofield. Mark, before we started recording, we were talking about Chick-fil-A's newest innovation, and you were the only one of the group who was seemingly brave enough to give it a chance.
It's a honey pimento chicken sandwich. And for whatever reason, everybody seems turned off by this. I'm excited about it. I'm going to get myself to the nearest Chick-fil-A at some point this week and try this thing because honey, I like it. Pimento cheese, big fan. Chicken, always great. Bun, fantastic. It seems like a great combination to me. I'm very surprised that everybody else is like, no, no way. I'm very surprised to be on an island here.
I don't like pimento cheese. If it sounds fine, like honey chicken sandwich, that sounds perfect. But if you add pimento cheese, you lost me. I think.
How does pimento cheese lose you?
I don't like pimento cheese. It smells weird.
It's a disgusting thing. That would be how. Yeah. Rachel, actually, just to be clear, she was bothered. You left out the pepper portion of this, Mark. So there is a kick element to it. So that's the part that dissuade her. Yeah, the pepper's fine to me. I would eat this sandwich void of pimento cheese. This isn't a flex or anything, but I've been to the Masters, and so I've tried that.
No, wait, whoa, come on, that's a flex.
That's what I'm saying. If that one's not great, if that pimento cheese can't hit for me, I'm a big Chick-fil-A fan, but I have a very difficult time believing that this pimento cheese could work out.
It's also a $2 sandwich at the Masters.
Yeah, but I that's like saying I had pizza in Italy and it didn't. This isn't true for me, but it didn't work out. So if you didn't like it there, where is the pizza that you will enjoy? You know what I'm saying? I have tried the Holy Grail pimento cheese, and so it's just impossible for this one to live up to the standard.
I guess, but I mean, Chick-fil-A does things so well. I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going in optimistic about it. I will report back once I get a chance to try it. And look, if you guys are right, I will certainly take the L. I mean, I have no problems taking L's. People know that, but I'm going in excited about this. I think it's going to be good.
If they gave you the option to just remove the pimento cheese, you'd be all for it.
Well, I could do that. I could get two. I could get one with it, one without. Do a little taste test.
They should do it like they do the deluxe chicken sandwich and the regular chicken sandwich. One without cheese, one with.
That's really well said. My wife and I, our family, we got a new puppy over the weekend. We named her Honey. So I think she was maybe the sort of inspiration for this because it is the honey pepper or whatever pimento cheese sandwich it is. So shout out to Honey for really.
Look, RJ has dropped a Masters flex and a puppy flex in the first 3 minutes of this show. It's all downhill from here.
That's true. Well, some would say that that's true because the preseason is over, Mark. There are sickos out there who only care about the preseason. Regular season, not for me. I need the preseason to really get my juices flowing, to get my honey pepper up, if you know what I mean. The preseason has come to its final conclusion. I can't believe we used to do 4 games, JP. This was really pulling teeth to get through Sunday night's Texans-Saints game. And holy crap, there used to be a whole nother week. That's crazy.
Football stamina right now is at such an all-time low. I think it's because you're just getting back into the swing of things. But even for me, I'm normally someone who stays up and watches all the preseason games. But this year, I was just yeah, man, that's not happening. As soon as the starters or the starting quarterback was pulled out in the second half or something, I was yeah, I'm gonna move on to something else.
Mark, we've come a long way. Speaking of the Texans, from that Patriots-Texans game that was the first one outside of the Hall of Fame game, nobody ever really gets up for or cares. But that Patriots-Texans game kind of was and again, football is back 12 times. Like I said, you've got new league year, you've got first free agent signing, first big trade, the draft, training camp, preseason. That was a moment that football was back, but that dissipated rather quickly.
Yeah, it goes away quickly. And like JP said, like we get so excited. Even the Hall of Fame game, we're like, oh great, football is back. We've got games to watch. We've got, Michael's in the booth. We get all this fun stuff going on. Within a couple of plays, you're like, for me, I'm looking over at the shoulder at the Xbox. I'm like, look, I could be doing other things right now. I mean, it's a marathon. The NFL season is a marathon. I mean, one of my favorite events is schedule release, a random Thursday in May, a list of games that we know are coming. I mean, none of these are a surprise, but we get so geared up for it. We break it all down. We get schedule release videos. The NFL does such a great job at keeping themselves in the conversation year round. Like when a free agency show on ESPN does better ratings than like NBA regular season games and stuff like that, the NFL has just found a way to keep itself always relevant. So the NFL is like, NFL season is always back. But yeah, football fatigue has already set in, and we don't have regular season games yet.
It's still that kind of whole point, and because of the new week thing or the new bye week, this is a weird week. It's a sad week for the NFL. Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern is the deadline for every single team to be down to their initial 53-man rosters. There will, of course, be some roster gymnastics and jump rope that we see every team play with IR stashing and things like that. But stay tuned to your favorite SB Nation blog for whatever you need to know, obviously, regarding your favorite team. Next week on the show, we'll do our division picks and conference picks and awards picks and things like that because it will be the start of the regular season. But today we're just going to kind of spin the wheel and go with some preseason takeaways, whatever you want it to be. So JP, the wheel is spun for you. What is your first preseason takeaway?
My first preseason takeaway is that offensive line depth in the NFL is at a really bad point right now. Like, I guess it's something that happens every preseason, but there truly aren't a lot of teams in the NFL who can say they have depth at the offensive line spots for first, second, and third string teams. Like, it's bad, but you also understand it at the same time. Like, there aren't a lot of 6'3" and up, 300+ pound people walking down the street. And the guys that you do see like that, they're probably signed to a team already. So watching the preseason this year, I was like, dang, offensive line play was not great outside of the starters, which you probably expected, but it just says it's a testament to how important the offensive line is at the NFL level, because you can't get replaceable play from your second string guy to a first string guy. It's having those guys up front matter a lot.
Yeah, and building off of that, I saw an interesting point. I was trying to dig up the tweet from Jeff Schwartz, former offensive lineman in the NFL, and basically said, like, how can you expect to develop offensive line depth with the way the practice rules are? Like, there's not a ton of contact in practice anymore. And so how can we expect teams to have 2 deep, 3 deep along the offensive line when the practice time is limited? A lot of it is like mental work and going through stuff with shells and things like that. It's a trickle-down effect. When you can only do so much, when you're only limited in practice time to begin with, you're going to focus obviously on the ones. It's hard to build that kind of depth. And now you're seeing teams like New England, trading for reserve offensive linemen, trying to fix it that way. It's a problem. And it has a trickle-down effect as well on other positions. Like if you're trying to develop a quarterback, but you can't get offensive line depth to protect that player in a preseason game, how does that quarterback then develop? He starts speeding up his internal clock. He's under pressure, so he's getting the ball out quickly. He's not going through reads because sometimes he doesn't have a chance to go through reads. It's a problem. It's a problem, I think.
I put together my Cowboys 53-man roster prediction on Sunday, and I had 10 offensive linemen, and I got some pushback from people that are like, 10? And it's like, well, yeah. Like, I mean, like, I trust the 10th dude here more than, the first dude available elsewhere. It's just, right. I mean, it really is that dire of a situation. I don't know exactly when that happened. You're right, JP. Like it does feel like an annual sort of refresher that we go through. But man, like it is, and like you would think that the spring leagues would help kind of mitigate this problem to some degree. But it's like an epidemic. Like it's just, outside of, maybe every team's, I don't even know that every team has a swing tackle that they feel great about. But even then, like after that, it just all falls off a cliff.
Yeah, I think Dallas is one of the few teams that has like truly offensive line depth. They have guys who are twos who can. I'm not saying like they could come in and like start everywhere else, but the drop off isn't insane. Like if you lose like your right guard somewhere else and you have to implement somebody else, and it takes a drastic drop off. I really do think like the biggest point here, like in terms of like we don't have a lot of offensive line depth, is like I said, it's not a lot of big people. Like there's a very limited amount of big people. Like especially like with receivers and running backs, you can find somebody who's like 5'10". Like that's like the average like male height in the US. You can find somebody like walking down the street and be like, hey, you play football, like come try out. But you can't find an offensive lineman walking down the street or anything. Those are big dudes. Like those are a very like high prize commodity. And you would think the same thing's happening on the defensive line, but defensive line, like Mark said, isn't as highly impacted as the offensive line is when it comes to practice rules, because pass rush, you don't really have to like have serious contact to work on pass rush.
Yeah.
It really is it's a combination of a lot of things. And you can't really say, oh, we need to increase the contact in practices, because then that's increasing the risk for injury. So you're kind of at a catch-22 here.
Mark, we've got a question from Dan who kind of brought up what I said, are some USFL and XFL linemen finding homes? I would say not really. I mean,
no, it doesn't seem like it. And you would think that's a great question. Like, why aren't they? You know, you're seeing some USFL, XFL players, mostly from what I've seen, skill players, like finding spots.
Right.
Why aren't linemen finding spots? And I think, you know, we've always, you know, particularly in the world of quarterback development, but we've always wanted that sort of developmental league, you know, to get players some reps, like a guy like Trey Lance, who was just traded. Obviously, RJ knows that extremely well. He needs reps. He needs time. And he certainly wasn't getting in San Francisco. Don't know if he's going to get it in Dallas, but a place like the USFL, XFL, where you can get reps. But the problem is you need good offensive linemen. And if you're any good at playing offensive line, chances are you're going to be on a 90-man roster in the NFL. You're not going to be in the USFL. You're not going to be in the XFL. So it's, again, that sort of trickle-down factor there, too. So I haven't seen a lot of linemen getting spots from those leagues. Maybe at some point, if we do see a merger between those two leagues and it becomes a true developmental league, which I think was what a lot of people want to see, then maybe that does happen.
I'm not extremely well. Go ahead, JP.
I mean, just looking at the month of August, so the XFL has a landing page where it says from XFL NFL, and it lists all their signings. There were some linemen that were signed in the month of August, but I'm guessing like those guys are primarily just like tryouts or camp bodies.
Right.
And like Mark said, if you're any good at playing offensive line, you're probably already going to be on an NFL roster.
Right.
Like it's not like you can slip through the cracks, or a player who was in the NFL goes down to the XFL at a lineman spot. You're probably going to stick around in the NFL for a while if you can play that position.
I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at. And like to your first point, JP, like I was saying I'm not well versed in everybody's 53-man roster prediction, like every team, but I'd imagine everybody ultimately finishes with somewhere around 9 or 10 offensive linemen. And that's just on the 53-man roster. Like everybody's got another 2 on their practice squad, maybe on average. Like you're talking about somewhere between 300 and 350 humans, which again, to your point, JP, of rare physical size and stature that are already in the NFL. And so it's difficult to find the 351st dude, I guess, is maybe kind of the problem, even on an earth with 7 billion people. But that remains. Is there 7 billion people? Can anybody fact check me there? I think that there are.
I'm going to look it up.
Sounds roughly right, but what do I know?
I think like we were at like 6.7 for a while as a planet, but I think we hit the 7 bill mark recently. I don't know.
We hit the 7 billion mark in 2021.
We're approaching 8.
Wow. We picked up on almost $1 billion in 2 years. Not even 2 full years.
COVID, man. I mean, people were home.
Wow.
The UN estimates that we're over 8 billion in the world right now.
Wow. But not even 351 quality offensive linemen for the NFL. Interesting.
I think
in fact, like on an international level, I'm sure you both remember Isaac Alarcon, the Cowboys International Pathway Program. They flipped him from offensive line to defensive line. So like that's an example of someone who they found in literally a different country that, you know, couldn't quite make it as an offensive lineman. So we'll see. I guess we have to talk about it. I've talked a lot about it at Blocking the Boys, but you brought up Trey Lance, Mark. I don't know what y'all's takeaway is. I'm actually very fascinated. It went from a really annoying thing initially to kind of cool as the weekend unfolded for me. But I'll save my thoughts for last because I'm a gentleman. Mark Schofield, your thoughts on Trey Lance being traded to the Dallas Cowboys?
I was surprised it was Dallas. I was surprised at the teams that were in on him as well. Like you heard Buffalo, you heard Baltimore. He needs
Detroit.
reps. like Detroit too. He needs reps. I don't know where he's getting them from those teams. I mean, I was of the mind, and I said this on an earlier show, that like Minnesota was like the landing spot because it was the offensive scheme fit. Maybe he'd get some practice time reps, and then look, they could turn to him. Because who knows what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins. I did see the comments from Dak that were floating around yesterday where he seemed, I don't know if salty's the word, but he seemed a little perturbed, annoyed, something. I don't know. It doesn't seem like he has a warm and fuzzies about this move. At the same time, look, if you're Dallas, it's a 4th round pick. What's the hit rate on 4th round picks? It's not great. So sure,
It's
go
Dak.
for it.
It's literally Dak. He's the only one. JP, just to butt in, if you didn't see, or if anyone didn't see Dak after Saturday night's game, where he served as the play caller, by the way, for the Cowboys offense, he was a little terse, certainly more so than he usually is. But if my opinion means anything to either of you or anyone listening, my read on the subject is he's more upset on behalf of Will Grier. Will Grier was the Cowboys. He seemed to be in line for the emergency 3rd quarterback option. This trade obviously effectively cut Will Grier. In fact, on Friday night, right after the trade, it was reported all over the place that Will Grier was told that he wasn't going to make the team. And he went out and kicked ass on Saturday in spite of that, and good for him. And I can't wait to see where he hopefully winds up. But that was my read, JP, was that Dak was just upset on behalf of his guy, not threatened by Trey Lance's presence towards his specific job personally.
We're making far too much of this in terms of Dak Prescott's
Go off, King.
Like, this is not this move has nothing to do with Dak Prescott in the 2023, 2024, 2025 season. Like, this is not something that's going to affect Dak. Like, I think we're going to turn it into that, because whenever Dak plays bad, everybody's like, oh, that Trey Lance sitting on the bench. But this is really just kind of weird as hell to me. Like, I don't know. Initially, I saw it as weird, but I think when you look at it in terms of Trey Lance's development, he needed reps, and you're not going to get that from Dallas. But you also weren't going to get that from any of the spots that were rumored to be in on Trey Lance. Initially, I thought Tampa Bay should make a move. Outside of Minnesota, Tampa Bay should make that move. But it's weird in terms of Trey Lance, but I get it in terms of being like the Cowboys. Like, you have a high upside potential QB2 right now, and that's something he's going to be battling Cooper Rush for that 2nd quarterback spot. So that makes sense. This has nothing to do with Dak. I mean, the way his contract is set up, this probably won't affect Dak until like 2025. And by that point, Trey Lance is probably not going to have his 5th-year option picked up. It's just weird. Like, we won't see Trey Lance in regular season reps until maybe like 2025.
Until week 5, when the Cowboys visit San Francisco and Trey Lance gets to go take a couple of knees in victory formation. That's when we'll see Trey Lance take a regular season. Anyway, no. So to your point, the details of it all, Dak's cap number next year is almost $60 million. He has a no trade clause in his contract. And so I would be stunned if the Cowboys were fine stomaching that next year, which is why a contract extension is necessary. And to your point, JP, the moment that gets done, that's further proof that he's the dude, especially if that happens in conjunction with them not picking up Lance's 5th-year option next spring, obviously heading into the 24 season. So yeah, I mean, this is the Cowboys, so it gets blown the way it does, and that's fine. That was really my only hesitancy, was I was just like pre-annoyed at everything that was going to come of this. But I'm not trying to say the Cowboys are galaxy braining everybody, but they need an emergency 3rd quarterback. Like, find me the 3rd quarterback in the NFL who you like more than Trey Lance. That's why we were all kind of like weirdly interested in San Francisco's quarterback situation. And Mike, the thing I go back to, Marcus, we know that Mike McCarthy loves to develop quarterbacks on the side. Like, that's his thing. Like, he loves to have that project that he's always working on. The Cowboys drafted Ben DiNucci, the forever GOAT, his 1st year in Dallas. And they've talked so much in the last 2 years about drafting a quarterback, 3 years actually. And it just hasn't worked out in the draft. They've had other value, et cetera, et cetera. They effectively, I don't want to say effectively drafted, because it's a lot of money to pay. It's 4th round pick, things like that. But they picked up their project. He's 23 years old. Like, it is a Mike McCarthy project.
Yeah, it is a Mike McCarthy project.
It was pretty funny when Jerry was talking about making this trade, and he was like, yeah, there's a quarterback on the Eagles who won't be named that we tried to draft 2 years ago. And that kind of set off, again, like everything Jerry Jones says, like, hey, dog, you should probably just stop talking.
Yeah.
But sorry, just quickly to that point, so they didn't do visits that year. That was 2020, obviously.
Yeah.
But Jalen Hurts was one of their virtual 30 visits. I mean, and so they like to have that project. That's not a foreign thing under Mike McCarthy specifically. Mark.
Yeah, no, I mean, Lance is the Mike McCarthy project. And McCarthy has a long lineage of quarterbacks that he's worked with, like literally dating back to like Montana and some of the greats that have played the position. And, if he can find a way to develop him, it would be a fantastic story, but he needs reps. And is running scout team reps against Dallas's defense, is that going to help? Maybe. I don't know, because it didn't seem to like help him in San Francisco. At the same time, like I keep saying, it's a 4th round pick. You're taking a flyer, 4th round pick. Hit rates on 4th round picks aren't great anyway. Trey Lance is probably better than you're going to find in most 4th rounds of quarterback drafts that are coming out in the next couple of years. So sure, why not? Makes sense.
This is a QB2. Like, this is a QB2 trade. The Cardinals literally did this for the Browns QB2 like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I found it interesting along these lines that Detroit, to your point, Mark, was interested because they have their development project in Hendon Hooker. Like, why would you know what I mean? Like, it's hard enough, like, to the point to find snaps for your development guy, like, let alone your second development guy, like, especially knowing that Hooker would need, all of this year to recover. I mean, that was just a weird name. Buffalo made some sense for similar reasons. I do think that we're starting to see teams take QB2 a little bit more seriously. Just because you kind of have to, like, you never know the difference that I mean, 1 or 2 game stretch will cause.
Obviously, as a Patriots fan, I know the value of QB2, and RJ, you know this as well. Like, when there used to be this mindset, the old quote about Peyton Manning, look, if 18 goes down, we're bleeped and we don't practice bleep. I think the league's getting away from that for a number of different reasons. 17 game slate, so you got one more game in there. The fact that the QB run game component is such a big part of many NFL offenses, you've got that increased risk, but also at the same time, a lot of quarterbacks that are coming out can give you that element. So it's not like, oh, we've got to develop a quarterback who can run our drop back pocket pass and offense right away. It's we could run some of our offense, or at least a fraction of it, with a quarterback like a DTR in Cleveland, for example. If Watson goes down, they'll be running a fraction of the playbook, but they can probably stay afloat. And that's the whole point, is teams now want to have an option that gives them the ability, if a Josh Allen or a Watson or a Mahomes or anybody goes down for like 3 games, they can stay afloat, go 2-1, and keep themselves in the mix.
And I do think the new NFL rule allowing a 3rd quarterback to dress without using an active roster spot kind of impacts this entire thing. Like, we saw the Niners go into the NFC Championship game and leave with Christian McCaffrey playing quarterback because all the other quarterbacks got hurt. So I feel like this is also kind of a reaction to, like, hey, now we have a way, so we have 3 quarterbacks who can dress out, like, just in case, like, you are the break glass in case of emergency quarterback. So I think the new NFL rule and provisions are going to help make that a lot easier for, like, a guy like Trey Lance, who probably won't play this season, but worst case scenario, you got to break the glass in case of emergency. He is the emergency quarterback this year.
And to the overall point, like, Mark, to your Peyton Manning, was it Tom Moore? Was it his quote?
Yeah, it was Tom Moore.
Like, I used to feel like when I would do 53-man roster predictions, I'd be like, 2 quarterbacks. Like, who cares? Like, I barely need the second one, because if my starter goes down, like, season's over, whatever. But now, like, again, to the point we're kind of surmising is like, well, like, we can cobble together, like the Cowboys did last year. They cobbled together a 5-game stretch with Cooper Rush. And so there's value in that 3rd quarterback, especially JP, like you said. You can dress him. He's your sort of 47th ghost on Sundays or whatever the case may be. And I think there was merit to Trey Lance serving that role with the 49ers. There's just too much baggage there for it to work and to flourish in any kind of productive way, given the history that he's had with that team and the awkwardness with Brock Purdy and now Sam Darnold, whatever. But okay, that was a good little bite of that honey. What was it? Pimento cheese?
Honey pimento pepper.
Yeah. I think we would be remiss. Mark, I'll allow you to spin in a moment, but if we didn't touch on the Jonathan Taylor thing, especially with Tuesday's deadline, I guess this is a takeaway, but like, this has been weird. Like, I think the takeaway, Mark, is that running backs have lost, and I'm certainly not trying to make fun of them. Saquon lost, Josh Jacobs lost, Jonathan Taylor seems to think that he can win. In this situation, the Colts have, I don't know that I feel like the Colts have made this worse, but somehow I think that like this Jonathan Taylor situation is extremely awkward and nobody's biting, nobody's calling, nobody's coming, but he hates the Colts. Like this is just such a weird collection of random crap.
Yeah, I mean, running backs are certainly swimming upstream right now. I mean, that's the way that the game has trended. And look, every summer we have the arguments and the debates over running back value, and it seems like this was the summer where the wave finally crested because it broke against Barkley, it broke against Jacobs, it's breaking against Taylor. Stephen Holder just tweeted a couple minutes ago that like the Dolphins are still involved, and there's one other mystery team. I've heard Denver, JP's heard a couple of other teams, but it's breaking against them. And this is happening at a time, and JP and I are actually going to be writing about this for the SB Nation NFL preview, where the game might swing back to running backs this year. It might start. It might not be a complete swing, but I think we're going to see more 21 and 12 personnel, or return to, like JP calls it, big boy football, big boy grilling on the roof football. Like we're going to see that this year as we've gotten, and if you watched any of week 0 at the college level, you saw a little bit less spread, a little more H-back stuff, a little more big personnel packages. That might be what swings the cycle back again. But at the moment, running backs are swimming upstream, and Taylor's going to be next. I still think he ends up in Miami because the Dolphins were rumored to be in on potentially a trade in for Robinson, a trade into the first for Gibbs if they could. It seems like Miami's going to be they were linked with Dalvin Cook, so it seems like Miami is the team that everybody thinks a running back is going to go to, but maybe we're all wildly wrong on that. I don't know, but running backs are swimming upstream right now. That wave is crested. We now see if the wave comes back in again.
I think we keep doing this with the Dolphins, and the Dolphins were linked to Christian McCaffrey, didn't get Christian McCaffrey. They were linked to Dalvin Cook, did not get Dalvin Cook. They're linked to Jonathan Taylor. I don't think they're going to get Jonathan Taylor. I think there's another team that could offer more than what the Dolphins will. And this is a team that has been known to just say, screw them picks. The Rams will absolutely do this trade. They would absolutely swing this. They have their 2024 first round pick. They have the 2025 first round pick. They can absolutely swing this trade if they want to. They just traded for Dan Moore off the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think with Matthew Stafford getting a lot older, taking a whole lot more hits, and with Sean McVay kind of skewing that offense, or beginning to skew the offensive line towards more of a gap-based offensive line by drafting Steve Avila, going and getting Dan Moore. I think a guy like Jonathan Taylor will not only like raise the floor of that offense for this year, but also maximize the ceiling, because Jonathan Taylor is one of the 10 best running backs in football, one of the 6 best running backs in football. So this is absolutely a trade that the Rams would do. In terms of the overall running back landscape, is kind of screwy for running back. I feel bad because there's not really much else that they can do. Like sure. Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs all proved their value to a team this past year. Saquon Barkley was the Giants offense. You don't get the Daniel Jones zone read keeper stuff if Saquon Barkley does not be as effective as he is. You don't get Saquon Barkley leading the team in receptions without that. Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing, but not only was he wasn't a 3 yards in a cloud of dust, led the league in rushing. He was generating explosives. And when they started to lean more on Josh Jacobs in that offense, the offense took off, especially now that you don't have Derek Carr. You have a quarterback back there in Jimmy G, who is an AI at quarterback. I will say that nicely. You need Josh Jacobs back there. So it's kind of sucks because they have proven their value. And I've always said, sure, you can say, you can replace, just the 15th best running back with someone who you sign off the street and get somewhat similar value. You cannot replace the 5th best running back in the NFL and get that similar value. You cannot replace one of the top guys at that position, So it kind of sucks, but you also have to be dang, this is kind of the landscape. And because we're in a cap-controlled sport, where a lot of the moves that are being made under the cap, some position has to be there has to be a position who gets the short end of the stick.
It's tough seeing. It's just kind of the dynamic of the game, at least the way it has been for a while, obviously. see, like, I don't know that I like disagree with you, JP, that you can't like. I get your point certainly that you can't replace the fifth best running back, but like right before we started recording this, Tariq Cohen was on Good Morning Football, and like we had the offensive line discussion, right? It's impossible to find even an offensive lineman to throw up on Good Morning Football on the Monday entering the bye week before the regular season, but like Tariq Cohen's out there, you know what I mean? I'm not saying like Tariq Cohen comes in and rushes for 2,000 yards or anything, but like Tariq Cohen on any NFL team today is better than any, like with respect to what he does, is better than any offensive lineman you pluck in and plug into any NFL team today. It's just kind of, there's not a shortage of talent at the position. I recognize your point again that there's a drop off of talent, but like you can make way, especially if you're the Dolphins in this instance with Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and everybody. Like, that's why like I don't know, like why would the Dolphins blink, Mark? Like the Colts are like, I saw the tweet too, like why would the Dolphins give up more than anything sizable, especially given that Taylor's entering the final year of his contract?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's to the point that, like JP said, we've done this with the Dolphins with every other running back. Right. And so we just assume that, oh, well, Miami wants a running back. They were in on McCaffrey. They were in on Cook. They were rumored to trade up into the first round for one of the first round running backs, Gibbs or Robinson. And so we just expect them to do it here. And, McDaniel kind of keeps brushing that off. Talking to people that have been down in Miami the past week or so, they keep saying that, like, yeah, streets are saying down here, they're going to go after him. They're going to make the trade for Taylor, and it hasn't happened. I mean, I think the funniest one would be Denver, just because, like we've talked about 2 weeks ago, like we expect Denver to be an interesting team to watch, an interesting offense to watch this year anyway. And, if they do that with Taylor, it's just, okay, they're going to run the ball 60 times a game. Like they're going to literally.
Russ won't throw the ball more than 10 times.
Yeah. He's not even, they're not going to let him cook. They're not going to let him wait tables. Like he's going to be a hostess at that point. Like he's not
letting him in the kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not allowed in the kitchen anymore. We're not letting you make the honey pimento chicken sandwich.
So I do kind of get it for the Dolphins, though. I get it for this reason. I think one of the problems that Miami ran into last year was they weren't efficient enough at running the football.
Yeah.
Like as good as that passing game was, we saw the game against the Chargers. We saw the games that happened, not even the Chargers, the Niners game, and every game after that. Teams started to key in on that passing game. And once you start doing that, you need to be more efficient running the football. We just talked about how teams are leaning more into big boy grilling on the roof offense. You need to be efficient running the football, especially because teams are sitting back in those too high shells, playing lighter boxes. They're asking you to run the football. If you're going to give up 6 yards a carry, that is good. That's good, like efficient offense at that point. So I think the Dolphins know that they want to be more efficient running the football. They traded for Isaiah Wynn, or they signed Isaiah Wynn.
I think they just signed him.
They signed Isaiah Wynn in free agency. He's playing guard. He's looked good. Teron Armstead is still very good when he's healthy. They drafted Devin Achane, but he's not the kind of back who is a between the tackles, gets you the efficient yards. He's more of a third down receiving back, explosive kickoff return, special teamer guy. Getting Jonathan Taylor will make that run game incredibly more efficient. How they pay him after that, that's really the biggest thing here. How teams pay Jonathan Taylor after this year is going to be like more important than whatever the draft capital is. And it's very funny that the Colts are like, nah, we're not going to pay this guy, but we're going to force you to give up premium draft capital for a guy that we don't want to pay. So it's all very weird to me.
I think it was Mina Kimes who I saw make this point, because like very often times when a team trades for like player in the final year of his contract, like it's like, oh, great, like that's cool. We'll enjoy this. We'll get the comp pick. But Mina's point was like, well, like we've just seen the running back market like completely and totally collapse. Like what comp pick is returning to whoever trades for Jonathan Taylor? Like there's no big contract out there that's netting you even like a 4th round comp pick. And, we all know 4th round draft picks are valuable because Trey Lance, but whatever. Yeah, this is a weird, like, I don't have like a passionate stance on this one way or another. It's been a weird kind of thing that exists.
I think we don't have passionate stances on it because we've been doing this for 6 years. We've been doing the running back discussion for a long. I mean, I remember the 18 Rams was kind of when it first came into vogue because there was debate. Oh, is Todd Gurley MVP? No. It's the offensive line. Like it's the scheme. It's the 11 personnel. It's they're facing light boxes. He's running against 5-man fronts all the time. Like that's when this started. It's been 5-6 years of this. Like we've just reached the point of running back value discussion exhaustion. That's why we don't have passionate takes anymore.
We do this every summer. It's without fail. And that's the point where I'm like, yeah, we need to find something else to do. We need more hobbies.
Yeah, we do need hobbies.
It really did. The Rams are kind of the Rams were the people to break the seal on the no running back taken in the first round in forever. Although the Chargers did it that same year with Melvin Gordon, obviously with Todd Gurley. And then they paid Todd Gurley, and then Zeke got paid. And that was kind of it. And then we saw a little run, like Christian McCaffrey got paid, Alvin Kamara got paid, or like it felt like, okay, this position is its own thing again. And now it's just like the Niners have kind of like nationally ruined it like over the last few years. But
yeah, I mean, the Rams feel like the petri dish for everything, right? The running back discussion, the first round picks and trading them away for veteran players discussion, give it up on a quarterback like early because, you want to go get a more established player, the, Goff Stafford trade. The Rams are like our little petri dish. And I kind of appreciate that about them.
Somebody's got to be the guinea pig.
Yeah.
You can even take this to the lighter boxes when they won the Super Bowl with Brandon Staley coaching that defense. And now, like, you're kind of seeing Brandon Staley become the like, hey, dude, maybe giving up 7 yards a carry is a bad thing. Like, maybe you should tune in less about giving up explosive 40-yard passes when you're getting gashed on the ground every play.
Yeah, maybe if you put all of your efforts towards the 2 games you have to play against Patrick Mahomes, you will struggle in the other 15 games. Or, just kind of some advice for you, Brandon.
Or at least win those games. If you're
gonna that's true too.
Effort into those games, you better at least win one.
Right. That would be helpful. The new puppy is in the room, so I'll see if I can get her on camera a little bit. Mark, let's spin the wheel. We've danced around some solid things, so I think we're only really going to each get one preseason takeaway. So what is yours? Make it a good one.
Man, this is tough because I've got 2 that I really want to get to, but I'm going to go completely off script here. Can we talk about Boltman for a minute? Because if you haven't seen this, okay, the Pro Football Hall of Fame put out a tweet Sunday evening that had Boltman visiting the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But the tweet was a picture of Boltman paying his respects to the bust of Junior Seau. And it's one of the most surreal, absurd, quirky elements of like NFL preseason football that I think I've ever seen. The memes on social media are fantastic. I mean, I dropped in the SB Nation Slack the moment from a video game, Call of Duty, where it's like press Y to keep playing, press F to keep paying your respects when you're at a casket of a fallen comrade in the military. I just saw a tweet like floating around where it's like Boltman at like various other historical events in history. It's one of the more surreal, and I can't believe that here we are at 10:42 a.m. the Monday after that this tweet and this photo is still up. So I'm going completely off script. I think we're going to talk about Boltman for a second.
Why the hell would they tweet this, man? Why would they tweet this?
I thought this was a joke when you were describing it, Mark.
No.
But it's real. And what's more is this tweet has been edited. So like there was a moment that somebody was like, "Oh, we need to rework this tweet." And it still exists the way it does. I have a weird problem with the picture. I don't know if you've pulled it up, JP. Mark's obviously obsessed with it. So it's worth mentioning that the tweet literally reads like it's not like you are embellishing the like pay respects thing, Mark.
No,
it literally says this weekend Boltman visited the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This included a moment to pay his respects in front of the bronze bust of the late Junior Seau. So like we're not leaning into the meme, like they're steering us into the meme. So would you both like to hear my really silly problem with this? It's admittedly a silly thing. I really hate when any one of us, so like watch out either one of you, uses like an image for the cover of something we write that is not like accurate with what is happening. For example, some teams wear patches for like certain seasons or something like that. So I hate like if you use a picture in the present from that season because it distorts reality in my mind, right? Like it should be like a relevant thing. Boltman is wearing the Navy Chargers jersey, but the old ones, the old jerseys they had when they had the white helmets, like the Phillip Rivers ones. And what's more is it is a Reebok jersey. The NFL has been wearing Nike since 2012. So Boltman hasn't gotten a new jersey in 12 years at the very least here. I mean, if we're assuming he got it fresh in 2011.
Okay, well, to that point, RJ.
Junior Seau.
But the jersey isn't Junior Seau's jersey.
Okay, but RJ, to your point, Boltman is hard up for cash right now because I was reading about Boltman earlier today. So last September, the former Boltman tried to sell the mascot and the rights to the mascot for like $50K. So Boltman can't afford the new jersey. Okay, he's hard up for cash. He put everything he had to the trip to the Hall of Fame. He had to go pay his respects. But look, he can't afford the New Jersey.
I just think it's very funny how they have Boltman posing. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just so weird. He looks so out of place in this Hall of
The photo almost looked photoshopped. Like, it doesn't even look. It just like looked like they edited him into it.
Like, what? Why would you agree to this if you're Boltman? Like, what?
Why would you agree to it if you're the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that's the better question, JP.
I need to know like what the thought process was here for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're like, yeah, we need something to tweet, and they're like, yeah, dog, let's just have a mascot come in and pay the respects to a fallen.
Like, are all the mascots going to do this with like former players?
I feel like they had a mascot group chat, and we're like, hey, does anybody want to come in and pay their respects to a fallen former player? Nobody responded, and Boltman just so happened to be like, he wasn't paying attention to the group chat. He just came in and was like, sure, but didn't know what he was responding.
Yeah, he thought it was like a new fantasy league. He's like, yeah, sure, I'm in. Next thing he knows, he's on a plane.
And
Mark,
now
you're
he's
right.
on a plane to Canton.
The quote tweets are amazing. Like
The quote tweets are fantastic.
They like it's. And if you haven't looked, JP, it's like people putting Boltman visiting all sorts of actually some of them are serious monuments, like where serious tragedies occurred. The Hall of Fame is not even like a tragic museum.
No.
Like it's actually like a celebration. Like obviously, Junior Seau's story is tragic, but this one is really funny. Somebody tweeted a photo of Boltman visiting Metropolis to pay respects in front of the statue of the late Clark Kent. I
saw somebody Photoshop Boltman into paying his respects, but it only had to score 31-30. That was my favorite one from the playoff game last year.
The 27-0 blown lead. Your point.
He's paying his respects to a fallen lead.
I mean, man, this and like to y'all's point, like the way his arm is like kind of flexed. You know what I mean?
Weird.
Like
it's
like kind of a pose, but it's not a pose.
Did he mean the flex for this photo? Like
he's like flexing in front of the bust of Seau.
Yeah, Clint up, brother. You're posing like you're Hulk Hogan right now. Like they have so many photos of outtakes of him just doing the Hulk Hogan pose where he's like,
yeah, they're having him like look. No, I don't look flexed enough. I don't look good enough there.
You got to get my good side.
Yeah,
look,
I guess that's Boltman's good side. It's like the back shoulder.
I'm all for NFL fandom, obviously, given our line of work. But like think about like the sequence of it. Like think about getting dressed in the hotel and like driving. You know what I mean? And like putting on the seatbelt in the car. You know what I mean? Like that has to be extraordinarily difficult.
I think the only thing that could have made this entire story better was if somehow Chiefsaholic was the one that got invited, but he didn't get to go for obvious reasons. So they had to pivot Boltman.
But I'm kind of caught up right now.
Look, man, I'm tired. Maybe in 3 to 6 I could get there.
But I do think it's funny. The original tweet, instead of saying pay his respects, it said solemn reflection. Those were the words that they chose to take out. Nothing else. Everything else was fine about this. But they were like, we have to take out solemn reflection.
Solemn reflection's a little too much. Let's dial it back a bit.
We might have gone a little too far with solemn reflection, but no, pay his respects is a whole lot better. Like you really did you knocked that one out of the park.
So to y'all's point, the original tweet also went out at 8:43 on Sunday. 8:43 Central. I believe Canton is Eastern time zone. So like it's almost 10 o'clock and they're firing this thing off. Like what? Like what? Who?
And so Adam Ward, our fantastic social media person here at SB Nation, like dropped it into our chat. Was like, screenshot this now because it's coming down in minutes. And here we are, like hours later, and it's still up and edited.
Technically, the solemn respects tweet did come down. The solemn reflection tweet.
So Adam was right about
it.
That.
Actually didn't though, because like with the edit feature, like accessibility, whatever, we can see the original version. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's not even like it's gone forever from a like an HTML code standpoint. You know what I mean? Like it exists. Wow, Mark, that was great. If you have a second one, you earned it. With the first one.
Yeah, I'll go quick. Is this the end of preseason games? We've had 2 preseason games that were suspended after injuries. We had Pats Patriots. We had Dolphins Jags, where player got hurt. Thankfully, both instances seems that the player is okay. But the coaches were like, you know what? That's it. Like we're calling this. Are we've like you said, RJ at the top, we went from 4 to 3. Are we seeing the end of preseason games? We're even seeing kind of the end of joint practices too.
I don't know if we're going to see the end of preseason games, because at the end of the day, the fans are still coming in, and they took off the 4th preseason game to add in an extra regular season game. So I feel like if NFL owners were to be like, hey, yeah, we'll take out the preseason games, we'll just add 3 more weeks to the regular season to kind of equate that bottom dollar thing, which they're going to be worried about the bottom dollar. So then we end up with 20 weeks of regular season football, which just sounds unhealthy in the most insane ways. But I want to believe that it's the end of preseason football, but I don't think it's going to happen just because they're still making money off of this.
My take, and nothing I'm about to say is an original idea. I've seen people on the internet, theorize things like this before. I'm with JP. I think we end up with 20 regular season weeks at some point, and maybe we get 2 bye weeks. I think that's a good thing for players, right? You give them a second bye week. It's a scheduling nightmare, but it elongates the NFL's run of television dominance, right? I mean, so there's a win there. So you make up for it in that respect. And what's more is you make up for I don't know the particulars of this. JP, if you want to hit up Darren Ravel, you can. But I don't think the NFL makes much from preseason games from a television standpoint, because they're all local broadcasts. And I don't know what the contracts with those situations are, if they have to allow local broadcasts or things like that. But maybe we do end up in a situation where I always thought, I know, again, not an original idea, the 17th game would have been cool to have some sort of geographical rivalry instead of what they did. You get I don't know, the Jags and the Bucks, or the Cowboys and the Texans, the Chargers and Nine. That would have been cool, an annual sort of thing. Maybe there is an annual geographical joint practice that happens, and they televise that locally. They sell tickets to that, whatever. I do think the NFL finds a way to get their scratch no matter what. And they evolve to a 20-week regular season. Every team gets 2 byes, and that's their way of saying, hey, health and safety, we really care. Look at us, blah, blah, blah. And that would, again, I'm all for adding another bye week, but we all know they all want to get to 18 regular season games. That's the future that makes the most sense, because I think they know these games are, although as unwatchable as they are, I don't know what Sunday night's Texans Saints game did on Fox, but I bet you the numbers are stupid. Also, Michael Kist with the comment of the century on our YouTube.
Yeah, epic win from Kiss there.
So I also kind of think what the Ravens did for their joint practices against the Commanders, where they live streamed the joint practices, I think that could work in terms of not having preseason games. You just sell tickets to the joint practice, live stream it. That way, the owners still get their scratch from selling joint practice tickets. But I don't know. It just seems like until you get something that'll equate those preseason games, I don't know how much they're making off the preseason games. I'm not going to ask Darren Ravel though, but it just seems like until we can find some way to make that, until they find a way to make that bottom line equate to the other parts, it's not going to happen.
Mark?
Yeah, look, money makes the world go round, and the NFL is a living embodiment of that. We talked about, schedule releases, training camps, the draft. You go on down the line. Every part of the calendar year has an NFL event, and part of it is money. The NFL is selling hope. The draft, I've called it before, it's packaged hope. Every team believes, the right players, the right draft picks, we're going to be in the Super Bowl next year. How do you keep that hope alive? Show them a couple of preseason games. Show them a preseason game until you see, that 7th round draft pick that, guys like me were saying, this guy could probably stick, if he's in the right offensive environment. He could be a great backup quarterback and maybe win a spot start here or there. You get to see that player play and you're thinking, we got something cooking this year. As long as people are coming through the turnstiles to see games, we'll probably still see preseason games, even if we have events like we've seen this preseason with players being injured, games being suspended, coaches saying, look, we don't want to do this anymore. But when we keep walking through the gates, they'll keep playing games.
You could just be like the Falcons on social media and just hide the quarterback every time there's a highlight play.
Yeah, you could do that too.
It creates intrigue.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the logistics. I certainly don't recall obviously there were, way more important things, but I believe that all Bills and Bengals fans got their money back from whatever, or at least there were efforts for that after the DeMar Hamlin game was suspended. I don't know what happened with these 2 preseason games. I don't know what happens there. I certainly don't know what happens with sponsors and things like that? Like, is it just a matter of like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, because if so, the NFL might be like, who cares if this is suspended? Like, we got, everything involved here.
Yeah.
Well, I think with the preseason games, like the thing with DeMar Hamlin was that happened like within like what the first 3 plays of the game. The
Right.
preseason games, these happen in the 4th and the 3rd quarter. So I kind of feel like the NFL owners and NFL is gonna be like, tough luck. But
You saw half of football.
you saw half of football, like even more. You saw 3/4 of football.
I have one preseason. Actually, I have 2 preseason takeaways. They're both very quick. One, I think kicking kind of sucks in the NFL now. Unless you have kickers are the new tight ends. You know what I mean? Like before, it was like either have Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Darren Waller had a moment in the sun. We're all kind of waiting for Kyle Pitts to like fully ascend there. But like if you don't have Justin Tucker or like a handful of others, I mean, you're really just kind of up a creek at this point. That's my take.
I get it. I think Jake Moody kind of messed the game up. It's really bad, and not only is it really bad, it's really bad because the Niners didn't have a draft pick until the 3rd round, and then they used the 3rd round pick on Jake Moody. So if you're going to use a 3rd round pick on this guy, he better make the kicks. But I do kind of feel bad, like especially for him and like Cade York, because through practices, Cade York has not missed a kick, but then when he gets into the games, it's like he has the yips, So I feel kind of bad because being a kicker is the most isolated position on a football team. Like you cannot say you can't blame a lot of other people or say like, hey, this guy didn't do their job, so I couldn't do mine in this spot. Like your job is to make the kick. And if you don't, a lot of people will be looking specifically at you. It's a very pressure-filled spot, especially when it's as isolated as it is. So I feel bad, but at the same time, like there's a drop off of the first few like handful of kickers in the league.
Thank you, Bear.
You nailed it.
Mark, do you have a passionate take on kick?
I don't. I mean, like JP said, look, it's the most isolated. Like I remember in college, like our kickers would be like at a different practice field, just like kind of like playing goofy games and like stuff like that. And then it's like, oh, hey, come over, we're doing field goal, and you get like 5 minutes of practice time, and then you go away again, and nobody. It's like that moment from Arrested Development, like with children, like Buster should not be seen nor heard. Like kickers are kind of treated that way, and then you come in and the final seconds, and it's like cold and snowy and breezy, and you're expected to drill a 55-yarder after everybody else has been playing for 59 minutes and 52 seconds or something like that. And then when you don't kick that, it's your fault. And yeah, kickers, it's a tough gig. There are only a handful of them that are good. Every other team is kind of hoping that they can find one. They're using 3rd round picks on trying to find one. It's not working out. Good luck.
My final take is I feel like, and I felt this way for a few years now, I feel like some players, the numbers on their shoulders are getting really small. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like some players, like, just take a look. Next time you're watching an NFL game, the numbers on top of their shoulders are smaller than like the font. It's like the font has been changed from like 12 to 8. Maybe not that dramatic, but 12 to 10. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit, it's the smaller players, obviously, smaller frames. And maybe that's purposeful to like kind of tailor, everything around them. And then the 12 font would look too big and too awkward. But there are some players who definitely have smaller jersey numbers on their shoulders.
Well, I mean, do we even need the shoulder numbers anymore? Like one of my favorite NFL facts is the reason for that was the advent of TV. It's because people thought, oh, we're shooting these games from the side. We're going to see numbers on the side because when they're lined up, we have to know who's who. Now we get 800 camera angles and we know who everybody is anyway. Like we don't need the numbers on the side anymore. That's my number font take right there. We don't need them. Get rid of them. No
I think they made them smaller so people could go faster.
That's
less cloth.
It's technically less weight. That's a great point.
Exactly. You know how like when you have race cars, you kind of take off the top part at the end of the car. I'm basing this.
Yeah, it's like an F1. They don't put paint on anymore because that extra layer of paint, like it's just bare carbon fiber. What's up, Mike? I know you're watching.
I know that because I read Mark's coverage of F1 and the Hub. Like Mark has taught me that information.
See, I read Mark's coverage, but I also just base that entirely off of the 3 movies, Cars 2, and Cars 3.
I knew that's exactly where you were going with this.
So I just kept thinking like, dang, Lightning McQueen doesn't have headlights. Maybe it makes him faster. Maybe the smaller font on the jersey makes players faster. I think we need to test this. We need to have like an average NFL player in terms of like speed. We need to have him run the 40 in a big font jersey and then run the 40 in a small font jersey, and maybe the less cloth like affects it in some way.
We need the sports science guy to come out
Yeah.
and do like a big old thing on this. Okay, that feels like the right note to end on. Rachel, if you could come in and join us, please, and tell us your takes on everything. Obviously, who won MFL MVP and what you think of Little Honey, who is making her first
Oh, there
appearance
we
here
go.
on
Look at that
Monday
pop.
Football Monday. Rachel's camera's taking a while to load, and everything in my house is going off. The other dog, the phone alarm. Can y'all see Rachel? Because I can't.
I can't.
You know,
I don't know what's happening with Rachel. She's just gonna try again. Yeah, this is Honey. She doesn't bark. all too
I
much.
am declaring Honey the MVP of Monday Football Monday.
Perhaps.
I think that makes sense.
I think there are players with honey-sized numbers on their shoulders. That's really
This is true.
what it is. Rachel's letting us know her Wi-Fi is slow. So
But
I mean,
while Rachel's coming on, I do have another kind of take from the preseason is we need pros versus Joes back. There are far too many people who say they can do these things in the NFL. Like I know there are takes out there where like, yeah, I could throw like for 5 yards in an NFL football game. When you cannot. You cannot throw for 5 yards in a football game. I don't care if you do the little jet touch pass. That requires a lot of timing that you don't have. Everybody in the NFL is really fast. You might think watching the combine that a 4.8 40 is slow, but trust me, when you're out like with an average dude and somebody runs a 4.8 40, they're running fast as hell. We need those back so people can get their butts kicked and realize, this is not built for me.
Or JP, we need it to mine for offensive linemen because we talked about how we don't have enough. So like it could potentially serve as an outlet to discover more offensive line play. Who was the host? Was it Petros? Was the host? The pros versus Joes?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. Mark's gonna look it up, and
Yeah.
Rachel. I think Rachel's waving the white flag on her Wi-Fi situation. So Rachel, at this point, I don't even know if you're still here. But if you are, we're gonna need you to chat us.
Yeah, Petros was the host. Yeah,
that's right. Okay, well, shout out to me. I obviously have earned the MVP, and I'm not making this up. Rachel just said it in our Slack chat that
she did.
I have won the MFL MVP. So shout out to me. Shout out to Honey.
Honey won.
Honey, and thank you, Rachel,
There
for
we go.
putting
There
that
we
literally
go.
in the banner. Honey, appropriately named for the, what was it called, Mark? The honey
pimento pepper chicken sandwich, which I might have to go get right now.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's almost lunchtime for you. Well, I want to thank Honey. I want to thank Boltman. I want to thank the Hall of Fame. Certainly, without them, none of us would be here.
The Boltman.
Yeah, exactly. What was it? What was the edited tweet removal?
Solemn reflection.
Solemn reflection. Yeah. That's my one wish as MVP this week, MFL MVP, is that we all have a moment of solemn reflection, whatever that means to you. You know what I mean? Because we know what it means to Boltman. So I hope that you and I and everyone are all able to discover what solemn reflection means to us. So on that note, JP, I would like you to send us out by telling us if you had to dress up in a mascot costume, what it would be. Doesn't have to be one that exists, but you can tell us like it would be this animal, this thing, whatever. But give us as clear of a depiction as you can, por favor.
Honestly, I'm gonna stick NFL with this one. I'm dressing up as Jackson DeVille. I think Jackson DeVille has the most fun of any mascot in sports. Sometimes he'll be like gliding in to the stadium like Shawn Michaels in WrestleMania. Sometimes he just won't have a mascot suit on at all. It'll just be a a Jaguar theme like bodysuit, and he's just wearing a Speedo. Sometimes he'll wear the entire mascot get up. Maybe he'll jump into the pool in TIA Bank. I just think he has the most fun. And, he was also involved in AEW's first Stadium Stampede. So I feel like that way I'd be able to get involved into some wrestling, jump off of something through a table as Jackson DeVille. So Jackson DeVille is my choice.
We were looking for the gorilla from the Phoenix Suns games, but Jackson DeVille is also a fine choice. So
absolutely.
JP.